So I just finished knowing that. Let's start over talking about the show. Of course, this completely continues over the dramatic battle that, of course, took a lot of people by storm. If anybody doesn't know, Omni-Man left the planet after having his fight over Marco for trying to conquer Earth for the Viltrum Empire after revealing the true intentions of his people, after lying to his family, assaulting the Guardians of the Globe, now being an enemy of the government, now keeping his entire true intentions a secret, hiding his death. Mark has to cope, knowing his father literally betrayed his trust, lied to everybody, killed plenty of people in Chicago after their massive brawl, left the planet without saying anything, knowing that Mark felt betrayed and heartbroken. Of course, his mother trying to cope, knowing that she was just a tool, and just a mere pet. That obviously would cope around a lot of people's mentality, and just Mark trying to handle what all happened, surviving the battle, trying to see if he could still live over his regular life, knowing that he's trying to graduate, still have a relationship with Amber, even though respectively, I think we all know what should happen with Amber, that bitch. But respectfully, of course, respectfully. I guess they're trying to develop her, and it's only been 2 episodes in, guys. She's been more understandable, more relatable, more pushing day by day. Yet I know, further, if you guys have read the comic book, that I know is going to be a hard sell over, the popularity of which that always gets spoiled. And if you're paying attention to the show in any source of medium on YouTube, you'll practically get spoiled what happened over in the comic book, so you can get a sentiment of what goes on. And it was interesting too, because they opened over the show, overarching what happened with Angstrom Levy. And if you don't know who the guy is, he has the power of multi-dimensional travel, with trying to get different versions of ourselves for different consciousness, so we can build its own utopia, of which I can literally fix every problem. But until Invincible came, his mind got fused over with many other consciousnesses of himself, and now he's mentally warped, turned evil, because Invincible was involved in trying to cause his downfall, with the help of the Maulers that you probably saw of Season 1. And then he got other Maulers from different dimensions to beat the shit out of Invincible, that caused this whole thing to recur. So you'll see Angstrom Levy, and it's supposed to be Angstrom Levy, but they enunciate it somewhat differently, and it does sound kind of weird. But yeah, you'll get. And here's the thing over in Invincible: they'll casually have interchangeable villains, and this builds over to more overarching plots. Like when they develop back over to Invincible, they'll be the more integral parts of the Viltrum Empire. You'll see more Viltrumites come over. Of course, knowing that leaving your post as a Viltrumite's a big no-no. And knowing Nolan had to do that to keep his family safe, build a new life over himself. Now he's a major target, or Angstrom Levy, where he gets different dimensional marks that you'll see around the end of episode 1. So we can get over his revenge plot, knowing he doesn't have the physical capabilities of beating somebody like Invincible. He'll get different Invincibles, or if that doesn't work, the whole world would hate Invincible. And that's practically integral to what happens, developing majority of the plot. Plus, around the first episode, the Guardians of the Globe technically get new leadership in the means of Immortal, after Robot is developing more emotion that kind of falters over his leadership in deciding factors, and trying to develop over leadership. They got more experience after the recently resurrected Immortal, and then he gets in a relationship with Duplicate, and around the comics that kind of develops further more into them getting married later on. So you'll get more long-term development involving everybody gets into relations or certain beefs. Even the correlation between the Guardians of the Globes and their death, you still see people that relate over to the previous Guardians of the Globe, with Red Rush, that got killed by Nolan, relates over with Invincible's mom, where they even cope over, like, both their husbands died last night, had to cope over the loss of one another, how they are feeling betrayed, or the fake ass Aquaman that they had, that was a former Atlantean king that got killed by Nolan after getting his head smashed. Invincible had to take over a punishment where he had to fight over a giant sea monster until saving the Atlanteans. So there's always a lot more integral connections that kind of feed over in the beginning of the plot, and that's always what I like over in the comic book side of things. It thinks this is not a multi-dimensional story like you see off like stuff from the Marvel universe or the DC universe. Everything sort of gets a connection, integral plot line, conflict, and then you get a conclusion that I can respect a bit further. And thanks is going to be with a lot more professionals intertwined with this. It's not going to be like overly simplistic like sometimes you see in the comic further on. And that's why I mess with the show. And by the way, I think they had Green Day over the opening after they transitioned out of Angstrom Levy, like breaking the Maulers out. So you're gonna probably get a lot of copyrighted old school, like probably alternative rock, old school rock, some stuff that you probably heard from the 2000s music. That's gonna sound pretty cool. And it's good to see Rexplosion at least get what he deserved after cheating on Eve. And I guess it's gonna be like more the correlated narrative of like balancing out still your life or dealing with the consequences. Knowing what happened over the incident over in Chicago. A lot of connections involving what happened with Nolan or just superheroes in general. And still trying to altercate what happened with previous episodes that you guys probably don't remember much of, like the Mars episode after invasive squid starfish species came around and invaded the Martian planet, and one Martian tried to escape over to Earth and try to make his own alias, shape-shifting as one of the humans and becoming a superhero for the government and becoming the new Martian Man, X-Hunter. So yeah, it's a lot of correlating connections to always try to pay attention to, unless like you're inversed with the comics or you like watching back over in the show if you like it that much. That's not entirely me. It's just sometimes I always like to mix over on details and I'll play it back. But that's how my job, so I can display it to you. So yeah, shout outs to the Invincible show. Very good show. I think the later tonight is supposed to be a new episode broadcasting around always every Thursday over on Amazon Prime. So that's a big sell over to you. I understand it's been a major hiatus if you're not caught up right now, because they haven't really aired a new episode since I think earlier around this year. Over the Adam Eve spin-off original series, where it went over to how Adam Eve originally got her powers. The ginger girl that used to date Rexplosion. And you'll see later on that she would get into new trials and tribulations and relationships later on. So that will be kind of displayed later on in the season 2, because I'm not going to try to spoil a lot of things over this review. But episode 1 and episode 2 was pretty good. Hopefully, I don't know if it can exceed a lot of what would happen over until like the Invincible Wars, because we know a lot of crazy shit happens then. And what develops on. But, I feel like season 2 is kind of a building block, but it's still doing a great job. So that's it from the show. That's it from the channel. Like, comment, subscribe. Thank you guys again. I understand I didn't put a video, but it's over on the community tab. Thank you again for 300. Let's get that to 400. And more, of course.